This week on ANN, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency steps up in the Philippines after 2 earthquakes.
The International Pathfinder Camporee in Oshkosh, Wisconsin wraps up.
And an Adventist school in Colombia helps migrants from Venezuela learn small business practices.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, on July 27 at 4:16 a.m., a 5.4 magnitude earthquake jolted the Philippine island of Itbayat. The quake left severely damaged buildings, almost 100 people injured, and 5 dead in its aftermath.
While people were still trying to recover, another strong quake was recorded at magnitude 5.9, resulting in the death of 3 more people.
The northern municipality of Itbayat has a population of more than 2,800 people and includes a main island by the same name, as well as 5 other, mostly uninhabited islands. Distance and difficulty to reach the islands deter most tourists from visiting.
Typically, it takes travelers 2 hours by boat and 15 minutes by charter plane to reach Itbayat. But when there is torrential weather, the boat rides could be prolonged for days or weeks. Itbayat also has many jagged cliffs along its shores.
Program manager for ADRA Philippines, Jerry Riquillo, says for a time, local organizations with the intent to provide assistance were barred from going to the island because the government feared for people's safety. All intended assistance was required to be handed over to the provincial capital to control the traffic to the island.
ADRA Philippines just recently got clearance from local authorities and arrived on the island. ADRA partnered with the Philippine Adventist Medical Aviation Services to help reach families and assess their needs. ADRA was able to reach the affected province and has been working closely with local authorities to provide aid distribution.
This week, the 2019 Chosen International Pathfinder Camporee wrapped up in the U.S. state of Wisconsin. The Camporee welcomed 56,000 attendees from more than 100 countries. The event featured many activities, spiritual evening programs, outreach to the community, and hangars with food and pin trading. During the Camporee, more than 1,300 Pathfinders were baptized. Pathfinder Club chefs had the opportunity to flex their culinary muscles at the 2019 Chosen International Pathfinder Camporee Top Club Chef Competition in 3 rounds each morning. The Pathfinders also set a Guinness Book World Record for the largest human cross, composed of 13,310 people. During outreach activities, Pathfinders filled more than 5,000 golden buckets for Adventist community services. The buckets included household cleaners, dishwashing soap, laundry detergent, and more household necessities. The Arkansas, Louisiana, Iowa, Missouri, and Greater New York conferences will take the buckets home to distribute as needed. The Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce estimates that the Camporee brought more than $21 million in revenue to Oshkosh. They say this estimate is low and could be more than $30 million once everything is figured in. To read more amazing and inspiring stories from this year's International Pathfinder Camporee, please visit nadadventist.org.
All right, we're going to move on to South America now, where more than 20 families recently benefited from a special project led by leaders and staff of Columbia Adventist University in Medellin, Colombia. The special initiative assists low-income families by providing them with the tools to start their own small business. The equipment given to the families included ovens, industrial food machines, sewing machines, mobile food carts, printers, and more. They also received 11 hours of training from university teachers on the use of the equipment, how to sell products, and how to manage their small businesses. In addition, families received raw materials to start their businesses, games for the children, a food basket from the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Colombia, Bibles, the Mission Book of the Year, Hope for Today's Families by Willie and Elaine Oliver, and more. The project will continue with more training by Adventist University leaders who will meet with the small business owners to assist in the process. Many beneficiaries have already begun helping others in need. The project is possible thanks to many Adventist and non-Adventist families who have contributed funds, food, and raw materials for the project and have provided transportation to deliver the goods to the beneficiaries' homes. University leaders will continue to follow up with the families through its Servant Ministries, an initiative that began 8 years ago for the surrounding community and plans to reach out and benefit 20 more families in November.
Recently, Raul Esperante, Senior Research Scientist for the Geoscience Research Institute, was honored by Eliodoro Uriana, the mayor of Toro, Bolivia, for his research in the study of dinosaurs. Esperante has been developing a dinosaur research program over several years, studying trackways in Toro, a beautiful but economically challenged town situated in the Andes Mountains at about 8,000 feet elevation. The key to economic development is Toro's location within Bolivia's Toro National Park. Esperante's dinosaur research is key to attracting other researchers and tourists to see the region's beauty, geologic wonders, and its amazing record of dinosaurs' activity. Complementing its dinosaur research, the university has developed a natural history museum in the city of Cochabamba, where it is located. This research-oriented museum is also designed to host school groups while sharing a view of dinosaurs and other fossils that is consistent with the biblical record of history. This museum wouldn't have been made possible without the researchers' hard work, the university's investment, and grants supporting the research and museum from both the General Conference's Geoscience Research Institute and Faith and Science Council. Now that investment is paying off for both the university and the citizens of Toro. For more information on this project, visit news.adventist.org. And don't forget, Creation Sabbath is coming up on October 26th. For sermons, videos, and posters, and much more, visit creationsabbath.net.
For the third year running, the Seventh-day Adventist Church has gained considerable attention at an annual fair in the town of Arendelle in southeast Norway. The week-long event is named after the town, Arendalsuka, or Arendelle Week. The church booth highlights the work the Adventist Church does with the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Norway, Healthy Lifestyles, and the Norwegian Bible Institute. The event has become the place to be for politicians who want to be in touch with the non-governmental organizations showcasing their work during the week. During Arendelle Week, the downtown streets are filled with more than 200 booths run by organizations ranging from the Church City Mission to the Norwegian Association for Rock Blasting Technique. Around 80,000 people visit during the week, learn about various organizations' work both through what happens at various stands and at more than 1,200 small and large events where relevant issues are highlighted. The city of Arendelle has a population of 44,000, but doubles that during Arendelle Week. The Adventist presence at the fair is part of the community outreach bridge building program for the 4,500 Norwegian Adventists who live in a widely scattered population of 5.2 million people.
This week, on August 19th, the world took time to pay tribute to aid workers who risked their lives in humanitarian service and rallied to support the people affected by crisis around the world.
This year, the theme was Women Humanitarians. Women make up a large portion of those who risk their lives to save others.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, the Adventist Church's humanitarian aid organization, took time to recognize the many women who work and serve with them, to bring freedom, healing, and hope to a world in need.
ADRA International sent this report.
It's not a job that's restricted to 9 to 5 at a desk. It's not necessarily comfortable work. As a humanitarian, you're on the clock when a disaster happens, and whether that means stepping outside of church to respond when there's been an earthquake, whether that means flying away from a family event to help out after a hurricane, or whether it means my colleagues in the field living through the event, living through the disaster. They still get up, they still go. More than a job, it's a calling.
Women humanitarians face a lot of risk, be it higher chances of theft, even sexual violence. So there are risks that are very in particular to women, and we just want to celebrate women humanitarians who are on the front line delivering assistance.
So women are leaders. I've seen it. Women take initiative in their community, whether it's leading a literacy group or education or teaching mothers how to create the right nutrition to feed their babies. Women all around the world are stepping to the forefront and leading and taking change in their community.
Women humanitarian directors are on the front line, they're in the office, they're working in operations, they're the driver, they're the finance, leading programs. To change a community, to change the job, it's having that representation and that equal representation of women in the workplace that can make a meaningful impact as well. A huge percentage of the people most vulnerable in a disaster are women. And so having women making decisions on behalf of women just shows the effectiveness of how we can better implement humanitarian responses.
As a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, I do believe that we are called to do what God will have us do to serve humanity, and in my case that happens to be working for ADRA.
If you would like to learn more about ADRA's projects around the world, visit adra.org.
Coming up, Adventists in Australia sleep outside to raise money for the homeless.
But up next, the Adventist Church in West Africa brings women from 22 different countries together for the region's largest women's conference.
Do you have sitting disease?
I don't know.
Do you sit all day?
Yes.
Are you known to your friends as a sitaholic?
Yes.
Do you sit all day at work, then get home and sit even more?
I do.
Data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination shows that more than half of people sit at least 6 hours a day. This sitting time has been linked to metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and a whole slew of other problems. If you've been sitting for more than an hour, you've been sitting too long.
We've got to get up.
By cutting your sitting time in half, you can increase your life expectancy by up to 2 years. Find ways you can stand more during your day. Pace when walking on your phone. Have walk and talk meetings. Set an alarm to remind you to walk every hour. Stand up and start living longer today.
Welcome back.
More than 4,000 women from 22 countries in the Seventh-day Adventist Church's West Africa region gathered at the prestigious Kwame Nkrumah University Stadium to attend Save to Serve, the Women's Ministry Congress in West Central Africa, hosted by the Northern Ghana Union Mission.
The event marked the largest for the church in West Africa. The women participated in community services, including the delivery of food, books, Bibles, and sewing machines to hospitals, prisons, and orphanages.
Prior to the Congress, evangelistic campaigns were held in 22 sites, resulting in more than 1,000 baptisms.
The Adventist Church in West Africa sent this report.
From the 29th July to the 3rd of August, the 2019 World Women's Ministry Congress took place at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science Technology in Kumasi, Ghana. The first day, we witnessed the arrival of more than 3,600 women coming from West and Central Africa Division. The opening ceremony took place on Tuesday and was highlighted by the presence of distinguished figures such as Mrs. Elizabeth Ajiman, the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister, and Mrs. Nana Techiwa, the Deputy Metro Director of Kumasi. The launching of the first all written by African women devotional book.
Officially, de façon officielle, the tape for the launching of the books. In the name of the Father, au nom du Père, and of the Son, au nom du Fils, and of the Holy Spirit, et au nom du Saint-Esprit.
Following day was a day of fasting and prayer. On that day, women brought their burdens at Jesus' feet, and we believe that prayer requests that day were turned into testimony. On the same day and throughout the Congress, women received courses and learned a lot of new and different skills in workshops. In order to reach out, women went out, followed by their leaders, for community services and a Great End It Now program. On Sabbath morning, women of values gathered together to study God's Word in Sabbath school classes. During the divine service, the Lord used powerfully and wonderfully His daughter, our mother, Mrs. Heather Down Small, to speak to us, to touch our hearts, and to set us free.
It was a big celebration for the women in this beautiful division who came safe to serve and to express their joy, their gifts in honor to God. It's a celebration about what women represents for this church. Not only nurturing the members, but the empowerment of all the women, but also the way they reach out. So coming here to Kumasi is a celebration of what God has done, is doing, and will do through the women in this beautiful division.
In Queensland, Australia, 20 Glenville Seventh-day Adventist church members braved the cold and spent a night on the streets as part of the annual Homeless for a Night Sleep Out.
The Toowoomba event, run by the nonprofit organization Base Services, was aimed at raising money for the Basement Soup Kitchen as part of National Homelessness Week. The ministry provides food, warm clothes, and other amenities to those in need, in addition to links to accommodation and health services. With more than 400 people experiencing homelessness every night in the area, Glenville church pastor Casey Wolverton saw the need for action. Indeed, he went beyond homeless for a night and spent the entire week sleeping rough, as did the main organizer of the event. More than $5,000 was raised by the church group, with significant amounts being achieved by the younger participants. The youngest, a 10-year-old, raised nearly $270 for the cause. The entire project raised more than $67,000 towards the soup kitchen, with Pastor Wolverton wanting to increase the church's involvement to 50 participants next year, with at least 20 of those being under the age of 20. Glenville and Toowoomba Seventh-day Adventist church members also volunteer monthly at the Basement Soup Kitchen. Coming up, End It Now Sabbath is coming up on Saturday. Victoria Turrentine shares how your church can participate. But up next, Adventist Mission shares how a young boy in the Solomon Islands found the Adventist Church and Pathfinders.
We may look, pray, read, think, worship, sing, and share differently, but we all look forward to the Sabbath. And we all look forward to the future when Jesus will come again. With this message in mind, we arrived at a core component for a new identity system: the creation grid, a simple 7-column structure for layout. The grid is a reference both to the prophetic timeline as well as to the creation week that culminated in the 7th-day Sabbath. The first 6 columns of the grid belong to the designer. It can be filled with anything: text, images, illustrations, patterns, and logos. But the 7th column, the Sabbath column, does not belong to them. It is meant to be different and special. Regardless of what or where you are designing, you can always find information to help you communicate that we are all Seventh-day Adventists.
May I work in with you, young fella?
Yeah. Go for it.
That's the way you do it. Got to put a little weight on it. But I'll put it back up here for you.
Welcome back.
10-year-old Joe watched movies and played video games with friends at his home in the Solomon Islands.
But Joe wasn't happy, so he decided to join a friend at church.
Adventist Mission has more.
10-year-old Joe watched movies and played video games with friends at his home in the Solomon Islands. But he wasn't happy. Joe's family lived in a poor neighborhood in the South Pacific country's capital, Honiara. Neighbors sold illegal drugs, and children stole and got into trouble with the police. Joe's house was a popular place for neighborhood boys to hang out every evening. He noticed that one of his friends didn't talk like the other boys and participated in something called a Pathfinder club every Sabbath. Joe decided to join his friend at the Seventh-day Adventist Church to learn more. Soon, he joined the Pathfinders as well and went to church every Sabbath. After a while, Joe and the other Pathfinders were invited to fly to Australia to attend a Camporee for Pathfinders from all over the South Pacific Division. He really wanted to go, so Mom worked hard to save money for his plane ticket. When Mom was finally able to buy his ticket, Joe flew to the Camporee and enjoyed every second of it. When Joe returned home and the neighborhood boys came over that evening, he told stories from the Camporee. The boys loved the stories, so they asked to hear more the next evening. Then Joe thought to himself, "My friends like to hear about Pathfinders. Why not tell them about Jesus, too?" So each evening when his friends came over, Joe kept telling them stories from the Pathfinder Camporee, but also began to share stories from the Bible. Joe's friends enjoyed his stories so much that they invited other boys from the neighborhood to come hear them too. Soon, 30 to 40 boys came to Joe's house every evening to learn more about Jesus. Although Mom didn't have much money, she began to cook food for the children to eat after story time. She somehow always had enough food for everyone. Joe's new friends began to ask him if they could join Pathfinders, and 4 joined him at church the next Sabbath. More of his friends came to church the following week. The Pathfinder leader couldn't understand where all these children were coming from. "Joe, why are so many kids from your neighborhood coming to Pathfinder Club?" he asked. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Joe replied. "I just tell them stories about what we did in Australia, and we have evening devotions, that's all." The leader asked to visit Joe's home to see the evening get-togethers for himself. When he came that evening, he was amazed at what he saw. Afterward, he said to Mom, this neighborhood would be a good place to open a church. He noticed that Joe's house had a large unfinished living room that no one used and asked if it could be used for Sabbath worship. Mom agreed. Several dozen neighborhood children came to Joe's house for church the next Sabbath. All the Pathfinder leaders and their families came as well, and they brought food for everyone. Then something happened that made Joe very happy. Mom decided to be baptized. Not long after, his 20-year-old cousin was baptized too, and so were 3 of his neighborhood friends whom Joe had introduced to Pathfinders. Today, Joe's living room is packed every Sabbath with about 70 people, and plans are underway to open a permanent church in the neighborhood. Now, Joe is 13 years old. He's humble in appearance and speech, but no one doubts that God is using him in a powerful way.
I may be small, but in God's hand, I can grow a church.
Like Joe, you too can help grow God's church as you share Jesus with your friends and family.
Watch this and other mission stories online by visiting AdventistMission.org. Then click on videos at the top.
End It Now is the Seventh-day Adventist Church's initiative to speak out against violence towards men, women, and children.
Victoria Turrentine is here to tell you where you can find resources and information about how your church can participate.
The National Domestic Violence reported, on average, nearly 24 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men have experienced some form of physical violence from an intimate partner. This Saturday, August 24th, the End It Now initiative raises awareness to the domestic violence our members are facing within the church. It also advocates to end violence around the world, not only in the Seventh-day Adventist community, but for our neighbors, our brothers and sisters to take a stand. You can visit enditnownorthamerica.org and enditnow.org to find resources that will help you get out of any abusive relationship and search materials to keep your family safe. They provide hotline numbers and centers you can visit to talk with a trustworthy advisor. Not only are men and women subject to abuse, but our children are victims as well. 30 to 60% of our perpetrators of the intimate partner violence also abuse children in the household. Visit End It Now North America Facebook page to find more information on support and the warning signs of an abusive partner. If you have been through an abuse and have found your safe haven, tell your story on their page to bring hope to men, women, and children who are going through the same situation. On your post, use the hashtag Adventist Say No to Violence and hashtag End It Now. Our bodies are the temple of the Lord's. Let us treat them with respect. Stay blessed and stay safe.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to Michael Yonker for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear some of the history of what is now Andrews University.
This week in Adventist history, we remember that even something as small as a dime can add up to support the stone foundation for a church. On August 19, 1878, the stone laying for the foundation of the Dime Tabernacle began in Battle Creek, Michigan. At the time, the church did not yet possess a finalized formal name, but as it was being built, James White had suggested that other denominational workers donate money for the new church's construction, particularly in the size of 10-cent dimes. By the following February, the name had stuck and the church became known as the Dime Tabernacle. It was the fourth church built in Battle Creek. The completion of the tabernacle was considered a fitting climax to the career and ministry of James White, who was elected General Conference President in 1879, his final term in office. Located on the corner of West Main, now West Michigan Avenue, and North Washington Street, facing McCamley Park, the Dime Tabernacle served as the church's most prominent house of worship for many years, until it was destroyed by a fire in 1922. Seating about 4,000 people, it was the logical choice for the 1901 General Conference session, where plans for structural reorganization and worldwide expansion and mission strategies were discussed and implemented. Also this week, and nearby, on August 24, 1874, the Battle Creek College opened with 100 students. The previous year, James and Ellen White encouraged the General Conference to raise money for a college building, and the efforts of G.I. Butler, S.N. Haskell, and others successfully raised $54,000 needed to begin the project. Later, it was moved to Berrien Springs, where it became Emmanuel Missionary College, and even later still, Andrews University. That's this week in Adventist history.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos, then write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Now, before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 26.
The passage says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh.
Amen. That's our program for this week, guys. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.